everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Graduate Series, the podcast. On today's episode, I have a technologist, software engineer, and most importantly, a highly influential change maker, Michael. Michael has gone on to found his own organization, Skillstruct, which is designed to help young people build digital confidence as well as find their pathways into the digital economy. The work that Michael does sits at the intersection of technology, social impact, and education. He has gone on to deliver a variety of workshops and taster programs to universities and communities. In today's episode, Michael talks about what it took for him to cross that line, the challenges that he has faced, how his purpose and mission was fueled, as well as the impact that he's hoping to leave behind. So without further ado, get your cuppa, get comfortable, and let's get into the video. And if you enjoy, as always, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am Rafaela, and I'm here today with a very special guest. I've got Michael.
Let's go. I'm excited to be here. I've been watching your series for a little minute now, so when you asked me to pull up, I said, no problem.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I'm so excited for today's conversation. I'll obviously give you a bit of an opportunity to introduce yourself and what you do in a little bit. But because obviously you're a guest, and sometimes, London can be very busy commuting to here. The day has been long. I just want to have a little icebreaker game to kind of lighten up the mood.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay, so my question to you is, growing up, what were you known for? And do you think that's still true today?
What was I known for? As in, like, family, friends, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like in your closest circle of people, what were you known for? Were you mischievous?
I was probably the Joker, I think, or I was like quite comical, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, no, I think I was like, I had one-liners. I'll just come up with some random things that make people laugh. Like, yeah, I'd say so. A bit of a joker or a bit sarcastic, quite dry, I think. Yeah.
So British.
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably, quite dry in my sense of humor. I probably still am a little bit. Yeah.
I can see it.
There you go. So yeah, probably that hasn't changed much, but yeah, I'd say probably just the dry,
the dry
sarcastic. Humor. Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another question for you. So you spent years building systems, products, and now a company. As I said, y'all stay tuned. We're going to dig into that. But what's something that you've realized about yourself through all that building?
Something that I realized about myself. I feel like it made me realize that I do have a level of resilience that I didn't realize I had 100%, because you need like tough skin, especially in the kind of business I'm in, and the amount of sacrifice personally and professionally it gives you. And I feel like, I had good resilience. It made me also realize that, I'm someone with faith. So just being able to lean on God a lot of the time, it made me realize that, I am of faith, I follow Christ, and it made me realize like, it put me in a space where I felt closer to God throughout this whole experience as well. It's probably why I actually got into this in the first place. Maybe we'll get into that, but I think those two things really, resilience and my closeness with God.
Okay, I love that. Okay, so now let's get into it.
Okay.
So for the people watching today, who is Michael? It's so open-ended, but who is Michael?
I feel like I should lie down. Do you want me to lie down on this
Please,
couch? And just,
that's what the blanket is there for.
Okay, cool. Who is Michael? Okay, so for this segment, I'll probably do this, but then I'll come back. But honestly, I think I'm somebody that is, I'm curious. First of all, follower of Christ, I should say that, as I've been alluding. Follower of Christ, so Christ first. Someone that likes tech, somebody that is curious about life, always thinking the big picture, and for me, that is what is the purpose and how do you execute that? How the world works. I'm quite fascinated by that.
Mm.
So I'm somebody who's quite curious, somebody who loves tech as well, because I've seen that influence from, maybe sort of my teens, adolescence to now,
Yeah.
where like we've had shifts when it comes to like social media, and also AI as well has come into the forefront. So I'm
Mm.
just seeing all these changes and how that's affected society. So I
Mm.
think, I'm somebody that's quite curious about, yeah, the intersection between technology, society, and that bigger picture of, what is my purpose within all of that. And
Mm.
yeah, so I'd say I'm yeah, somebody that's quite curious, and somebody that just,
Wants to bring about impact.
yeah,
That's what I'm
100%.
hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay.
Cool. All right, that's my therapy session done. Okay, let's get back to the regular schedule program. Okay, cool.
Okay. So earlier in your academic slash career
Yeah.
journey, what did you think that your life was going to be like? And how
Mm,
different is
okay.
that from where you're at today?
Yeah, so quite different. So obviously, I'm Nigerian by
Mm-hmm.
background. I'm saying obviously because
I don't
nine
know where you
times,
said
yeah, but
obviously.
most people think I'm like Jamaican or something. So,
I would have actually guessed
you
Jamaican
know what?
before.
Nine
Yeah.
times out of ten, I have this conversation with people. It's like, oh, where are you from? You from Jamaica? No, I'm Nigerian. Oh, you Igbo? No,
I was
I'm
about to say,
Yoruba.
oh, you're
I'm
Yoruba.
actually Yoruba because people say like, oh, I'm light skinned, maybe
Yeah.
I'm Igbo or whatnot. But no, I'm Yoruba.
You really decided to
Yeah.
just, what is it, defeat the
Stereotype.
stereotype and
Yeah,
the
no, that's
perception.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's me. That's my life story, trying to defeat stereotypes. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm doing it in more ways than one. But yeah, I think for me, when we're talking about myself,
Hmm.
and when I'm talking about and like remind me, the question's more about like my journey and myself, or was
Yeah,
it?
like, did you think when you were younger, be it in
Yeah,
school or in
yeah.
uni, that this is where you were going to be
Yeah,
at?
yeah. I guess yeah, with myself, I'll probably say probably yes in a way,
Hmm.
because and I say that because so Nigerian, the reason I brought up actually was because my parents normally in our culture it's like you're going to be a doctor, engineer, lawyer. So I got the lawyer card, and so my parents knew like I like to debate, or I like to like you know, stand up to things which I feel like isn't just.
Yeah.
And so they said like lawyer would be perfect for you almost. And to be honest, I kind
Oh,
of liked the whole idea of being a lawyer and being in
yeah.
court and debating and doing justice
Hmm.
in one way. And so that's where I thought I was going to be. So like it's yes and no in the sense that I'm not a lawyer now, I'm a software
Yeah.
engineer. But like where I've kind
Very
of gone,
different.
yep, very different indeed. What isn't different though with the whole idea of impact and what I do with Skillstruct, and fighting that just cause when it comes to like inequality, and especially on the lower socioeconomic side of things, trying to like
Mm,
bring out equality and stuff like that. So no,
mm,
I'm not a lawyer, I'm a software engineer, but nonetheless, like I feel like there is overlap with
yeah.
where and why I wanted to do law in the first place versus where I'm at today.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that. And you brought up Skillstruct, and he's rocking
Merch,
the
merch,
business
merch,
name.
merch, merch,
Exactly.
product placement, all of that good stuff. Yeah.
So I feel like it's obviously good timing to turn the conversation to Skillstruct.
Hmm, hmm.
So, in terms of your business, so you talked about obviously like just that like you touched upon social mobility and underrepresentation, etc., and
Hmm.
that's ultimately that gap that you're trying to bridge, right, between like underrepresentation of talent as well as like just the gap within the industry.
Hmm.
Have I summarized that well, or do you feel like I'm not really doing it justice before I go on to my question?
No, no, you've done it justice for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would add to that is, for me, it just was a representation of my journey into technology, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all of those things that I saw whilst I was doing quite well in
Mm-hmm.
technology. So I was fortunate to come into technology when the supply was quite low and the
Yes.
demand was quite high when it came to people for tech. I was headhunted a couple of times through
Mm.
LinkedIn, for example, with some of the opportunities I got. And it was quite easy for me to just like move from different company and build my skill set up. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I was moving up in those sort of ranks and I realized I wasn't seeing a reflection of myself, it made me realize like if I can create some sort of bridge or some sort of pathway into
Yeah.
Skillstruct and the opportunities that we are building, then hopefully somebody like myself, because
Yeah.
I always feel like I built Skillstruct for someone like myself at the time where I didn't really see those things being
Yeah.
made, then that's job done, and I feel like that's kind of my purpose at the moment. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. And okay, so going back to, as you said, at the time that wasn't really, you know, like you didn't really see those kind of opportunities. That leads me to
Mm-hmm.
my next question then, talking about like um even when you think about your business skill struct,
Yeah.
there wasn't necessarily a blueprint,
Yeah.
there wasn't a clear path. And that's reflective of entrepreneurship as a whole,
Mm.
but especially in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
then when like it came to like making decisions in the early stages,
Mm-hmm.
um how did you go about taking that risk, because you didn't know if it was going to work, if it was going to pay off?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you go about making that risk, validating, for example, your ideas even
Mm.
in the midst of like doubt and maybe no representation and no clear blueprint?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was. And I heard it a lot when I was kind of making decisions. Like
Hmm.
it's kind of crazy that you're trying to do this. I'm not gonna lie. It's like say I was doing quite well in technology, and
Yeah.
I was on a really good track in my last place before I got into Skillstruct. I was, quite infamous there for like driving change and being able to create things. We created an ERG in my last place. We built that from the ground up. Now, it's still there
Yeah.
and it's in different parts of Europe. So I was doing quite well in that regard. But honestly, it just goes back to the whole thing I was talking about earlier on with purpose and
Hmm.
what is my purpose. And I
Hmm.
think ultimately being able to help people. And yeah, I think for me, when I think about what I really want out of this life, is just being able to say, I was able to plant seeds, and
Mm,
me being rooted in my faith, that's how I tend to kind of to do that, right? And so for me, like there's more things more important to me than like the financial incentives.
yeah.
It's more about impact for me, which is important. I think for me, obviously this isn't a sermon, but one of my favorite verses is about in the Gospel of Luke, when I think it's 18:36, where it's like, Jesus is talking to the disciples and they're talking about the world and the materialistic side of the world, and it's like, what does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his own
Lucy's.
soul? And for me, that kind of hit me. I heard that sermon quite some years ago, and I was like, that's so true. And I was dripped out at the time. Again, I was still working corporately, and again, I think that sat with me for a while. It's like, I'm doing quite well. How can I build a bridge? So yeah, I think for me, being able to create impact really defined me. And so for me, purpose and impact is how I feel like my purpose is, and that's what defines everything I do at Skillstruct.
Yeah, and I guess from what you're then saying in respect to not having that blueprint, but then battling any like outside voices
Hmm.
dissuading you from doing that,
Yeah.
it seems like you were clearly on a professional career path,
Yeah.
but that um burden, as we say, obviously in the faith, but that like passion, that
Yeah.
call to really help other people made you feel like, well, put aside the money, put aside all of this,
Hmm.
that conviction is so loud that I
Yeah.
must, go on and do it.
Yeah.
And then you stayed rooted in that like motivation to make impact for others. And
Yeah.
then would you say so far that you have made that impact with Skillstruct?
Yeah, no, thank God we've been able to really help hundreds of people when it comes to opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
We work with about 40 academic partners at the moment across the UK,
Yeah.
where we're able to run events, put on programs for young people,
Mm-hmm.
and just again, build opportunities. For me, I always love when I get a message from a young person saying, "Hey, you know, we got that job," or I'm learning this discipline. It could be a programming
Yeah.
language, or I'm really improving on my soft skills now, and it's because of the sessions that we ran and the opportunities that you've kind of flagged and the resources
Yeah.
that we're able to like help and support. So that is sort of the validation I constantly get. You know,
Yeah.
I had a coffee with one person from my network, Skillstruct University, where we helped him get an apprenticeship job last year. We done a video about that last year as well, which was great. And for me, he was just so full of life with, oh, I've just started and, you know, I'm trying to make a good impression. And what do you think it should be about this and that? And just seeing that where he was to
Yeah.
where he is now, yeah, that's where, like I say, for me, that's how I measure the impact that we do. And so
I love
you
that.
can't really put a price on that. So
Absolutely.
when you're talking about, you know, the risk, as it
Mm-hmm.
were. It
Mm-hmm.
was risky.
Yeah.
I basically sacrificed 2/3 of my salary to do it, and a lot of the savings I poured it into the business. So there is, from a sort of personal
Absolutely.
point of view, yes, there is sacrifice there. But when it comes to, like, say, those stories and being able to create impact, you know, again, you can't put a price on that. And I always say this when it comes to my purpose, which is aligned with faith. You can't really hedge on faith. And what I mean by that is, if you're moving within faith, then, you know, you don't really think of the risk
Mm-hmm.
really when it comes to that. So whenever I'm moving in a faithful way, when you hope for something, you hedge, right? You hope for the best, expect the worst. You know, that's what they say. But when it comes to faith, then yeah, you know, all the chips are in. So that's how I've kind of had my mindset focused, and that's what allows me, despite the hard times, just to focus on the big picture.
But you talked about opportunities, and you also talked about underrepresented talent within the tech industry. So I wanted to, for the viewers, for the benefit of the viewers
Mhm.
and myself, ask who is the target audience for Skillstruct? You talked about young people. So is it people of a certain age, or is it maybe even people who want to go into the tech industry but are, let's say, young graduates or professionals, but they were in a
Mm.
completely different industry? Is that, like, who is your target audience? And then the second question is, when you talk about opportunities, you've talked about some of the programs as well and the apprenticeships and stuff like that. Is this what Skillstruct offers?
Yeah, so to answer your question in terms of our target audience, so
Yeah.
how I generally describe it is, we have Skillstruct the business, and then we've got Skillstruct University, which is sort of our community
Mm,
network. And so, you know, I alluded to it a little bit before with catching up with that person
yeah.
who got the apprenticeship role. He was a part of Skillstruct University, which is our network where we support young people. It tends to typically be between 16 and 30. That
Okay.
tends to be around the age mark in terms of the
Thank you, Michael. You
network.
said 30 is young.
Huh? Yeah, I think 30 is young. I
Okay,
think
we'll
so. You
take it.
know, I'm in my 30s, so I'm holding on to that too. You know, I have to. I've got to keep young. That's, you know,
That's
how
it.
I
That's
keep
it.
hip to all the young people in my network. So yeah, I try and keep young. But yeah, so I'd say for Skillstruct University, 16 to 30, that's where we're able to support people with opportunities and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the business side of things, it's typically corporates or academics that need some sort of programs. We
Mm,
provide, as training providers, things to do with upskilling in technology,
yeah.
professional development. That sort of thing is the kind of things we do for, you know, generally business in the wider sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, so depending on the person you are, either say, you know, Skillstruct University is of interest, but if you're a corporate or somebody that is um, somebody that provides training, typically in early careers or HR, then the Skillstruct, the business as a whole, is the target for you. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Just one final question, in respect to something that you said earlier as well. You've spoken
Mhm.
a lot about your faith.
Yeah.
So then, for any person watching out there
Mhm.
today, if they're in a situation, be it when it comes to work or even something pertaining to like career, pertaining to, let's say, personal, etc., and they're in a space where there isn't so much clarity, what would be your secret tip or your, gem of wisdom in terms of navigating that and getting out of that based on your personal experience?
Mm. Um, when you're trying to look for clarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like, so the reason I called this skill strut
Yeah.
is for two fundamental concepts. So skill being one thing, and other strut. There's a deeper meaning to it, but essentially it means structure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always tell people, like, the first thing you want to do where you need some clarity is to put some systems in place, so some structure, a routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is, so I have this exercise called the RISE methodology. And so what I typically do is I go with somebody saying, okay, so what is it that you want to do? So that's the research side of things. And
Mm-hmm.
so we kind of do a playbook strategy and say, okay, you're interested in, let's say, software development for lack of argument. So what kind of things are you interested in software? Okay, so we start to build, okay, so these are the kind of companies you're particularly interested in. What kind of programming languages are you interested in? We try to map it to certain companies that align with those languages. And then it's investment, right? And so it's like how not just financial, but also your time, which is more
Mm-hmm.
important.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you investing your time to be able to practice, some of the things you've researched, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's actually buying a course and doing it, or following a YouTube tutorial. How are you investing your time, right?
Yeah.
So that's the investment side. And then again, structure. So as you're starting to put the sort of theory and practice into place, how often, because consistency is key, right, with these things. So how often are you applying those principles? Are you doing it once a week? You know
Mm-hmm.
your schedule, you know your routine. So very important to make sure that's aligned. And then the E part is evaluation. So being able to get feedback from people, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's your friends, your family, being able to leverage them when you're able to like whether it's an interview practice or some sort of presentation or something you just programmed or whatnot. That feedback loop will be very useful for you, because 9 times out of 10 when you get feedback, it's something that you might have to change on your research or whatever you're kind of implementing and stuff like that. So generally, yeah, I say, the RISE methodology is something that I've run this exercise like hundreds of times with people, and it works well,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like if you're able to apply those sort of principles in place, then I feel that can help when it comes to clarity and maneuvering yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Guys, don't say I don't look out for you. This man, he built systems, so I knew that he was going to
Mm,
deliver on the tips that we should all apply to every single decision that we need to make where there's a lack of clarity. So thank you for that.
it's all good. So young
Okay,
people say clock it.
pardon?
So the young people say, is it clock it?
Clock
There you
it.
go.
Now you're showing your
I
age.
know, I know, I know. I just ruined all that good momentum, but yeah,
I wanted to turn the conversation a bit
yeah.
more to talking about mission and impact,
Hmm.
what you're most passionate about.
Hmm.
So, building something with impact
Hmm.
often looks inspiring from the outside.
Hmm.
But what has this journey actually cost you, both personally and professionally, that people may not even see? Especially
Mm.
because before the conversation, we were obviously talking a lot about that. And then even what you said in respect to like taking that pay cut, that 2/3 of your salary pay cut,
Mm.
but then
Mm.
because you are so, engulfed in the mission and the impact
Mm.
that you can have. But yeah,
Mm.
what has that actually cost you in practical terms?
Yeah, because I was going to say, what, 2/3 of my previous salary for sure was definitely something it cost me from that point of view. But other tangibles, I'd say on a personal point of view, I think time more than anything, because you're
Mm,
constantly putting other people first,
yeah,
and because obviously that's naturally the nature of what you do.
yeah,
Your goal is to help plant seeds, and so more than anything, I'd say, yeah, putting other people first. And sometimes it's not ideal. There might be things that you have planned, and then somebody comes to you and says, I really need your help on something, or I'm really struggling with X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
And because of obviously the nature of what I do and the onus I put on myself to help people, I just make adjustments and just put that, to the side, and then look to help that individual. So I think that's probably things that people might not see, especially if you're in a mission led profession. I
mm-hmm.
kind of equate that to people who, you know, are teachers and
Mm,
nurses, things like that, where you're constantly putting people first. So this isn't just unique to myself,
yeah,
but yeah, I think that is the main thing personally. Sometimes, obviously, there's the surface level things. Obviously, like maybe your boys are going somewhere, and maybe I just can't make those commitments because I've got something going on. Maybe I'm running an event or whatnot, and
yeah,
so therefore, FOMO a little bit. You miss out on little things
yeah,
here and there, but yeah, in terms of the bigger picture, I made that choice. So this isn't like a sub story in a sense. It's more of like, it's the reality of if you want to get into this space, because
Yeah.
people might see like the post and the impact and the feel good factor, and
Yeah.
there is, but there's a lot that goes into the feel good factor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, sometimes, and it's no fault of anyone else, like it can, for people wanting to get into the space, it can be a thankless job sometimes as well. And
Oof.
it can be, and that's fine if you're understanding why you're doing it
Yeah.
in the first place, because you might help somebody
Yeah.
and they just take that help and move on. For me, whenever someone says thank you, how can I repay you, and I just say pay it forward.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it can be a bit of a thankless job in that sense.
Mm.
But and it's not to say like I've never been thanked or anything like that. It's just there's those outliers a couple of times where you've helped people. You're like, oh, okay, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's cost relationships. Actually, I remember one
I
time.
was literally about to ask that.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what relationship you're talking about, but I met more of my clients.
Yeah, I figured you meant that, but we'll
Yeah.
get back to my
Okay.
type
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
relationship.
Sure. Okay. I trust you. Yeah. So on what I was talking about, the client relationships, I was talking about like the fact that sometimes when, I had a client once actually, and I basically I had a relationship with a client where I was able to like help a few people get into the organization. And there was
Mm-hmm.
this one time, the client was like, "Oh, there's this individual, she's not responding, blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Nah, it's fine. She's gonna respond. It's all good." And so I messaged her. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna respond?" So like, "Yeah, I've got an assignment. I'm gonna do it on the Sunday." Turns out she didn't respond, and then it made me look bad on the client because I basically just put 100% trust in
Mm,
the young person at the time, and I don't bear any sort of resentment to her. um, I've seen her on LinkedIn from time to time. She's doing well, which is great, but it
okay.
taught me a lesson in a sense. Sometimes I have to, like, you talk about passion before, and I talk about that this being a passion project. It's still a business at the end of the day, so I
Mm,
have to
oh,
definitely make
yeah.
sure that is the checks and balances are in place.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that was an example of a sacrifice that made me realize, like, I have to put checks and balances in place just to make sure, like, I'm not just leading through emotions and operating that way.
That's very real.
Yeah.
And that was actually going to be another one of my questions about
Hmm.
like, putting those boundaries in place. And then
Hmm.
sometimes, as much as you think about the impact, detaching and think about it from a business perspective.
Hmm.
But obviously, let's get back to relationships.
Okay. For us, well, cool. Okay. All right. Let's do it.
No, because you
Yeah.
talked about.
No, no, I'm open book. Let's go.
Thank
Should I
you.
should I be on
Yeah,
that? I
go
think
back to.
I have to go.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Okay.
So you
Go on.
talked about
Yeah.
FOMO,
Yep.
but
FOMO.
also we
Yep.
know that with entrepreneurship, sometimes
Mm.
it takes a lot of sacrificing, as you said, like you're putting that
Yeah.
first, especially when you're in the building stage. So,
Okay.
how have you been able to navigate, kind of potentially, yeah, neglecting a little bit those closest to you, be it romantic interests or family
Definitely.
members or friends? And
Yeah.
what advice would you have for someone out there? Because at some point, you do need
Mm.
to find a balance. And then you
100%.
also do need, that like support system to keep you going. As much as you're pouring into others, you also need to be poured into. So
Mm.
yeah, how have you navigated that kind of like space?
Yeah, I'd definitely say I've been on a journey on that when it comes to relationships, both
Yeah.
like family and otherwise. Like, I think in the beginning, I was probably a lot more headstrong about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where, like, yeah, I put the business first. So it did mean like people I was kind of involved with or trying to get to know, that was secondary
Yeah.
to it. And so I did see that a few times play out. And yeah, I think growing made me realize that, yeah, I could probably have balanced that more. And I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
better now than
Okay.
back then for sure. But yeah, no, naturally, like, I've had it before where, I've been in situations and it's like, you want to, like, I say it now, it's funny, like schedule, like, like linking up or whatever
Yeah.
with someone, and I'm literally like just looking at my diary, and I'm treating it like a profession as opposed to like something a bit more personal. So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm probably guilty of that and probably working on that, and I've done better since doing the
Yeah.
work-life balance thing. So yeah, I'd say on that. Obviously with family, not really. I think with family, like it's more so just making sure like I'm still able to, because I'm the second oldest, making sure I can still
Mm.
do my obligations to
Yeah.
like, supporting my family, whether it's my mom, my dad, my younger
Yeah.
siblings. So making sure, even though I've taken 2/3, that 1/3 is still, being allocated
Yeah.
um, properly or appropriately, should I say. So on that side, that's the main thing. But I think, yeah, like they've seen the work I'm doing and how hard I am working and the
Mm.
sacrifice. So they understand what it is. But, all my family's Christian. So they understand why I've decided to do what I'm doing. So
Exactly.
they're quite supportive in that sense. But as long as for me, I'm doing my duties, I feel like as an older sibling,
Yeah.
then I think that is, yeah, I think that kind of balances that out. But yeah, on the relationship side of things,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, making sure that I don't just treat it like a profession. It's beyond that, obviously.
Yeah.
Making sure that is definitely more appropriate. And I think in recent times, I've definitely been more like, allocate certain time
Mm-hmm.
and just like not making any plans on certain times, just to, yeah, not to overthink it and just be like, look, this is our time, and then that's our time. I don't have to look at my phone.
Mm.
I don't have to check my
Good.
notifications, all of that. So yeah, I think it's been a journey for sure on
Yeah.
that side of things. But yeah, no, I mean, through Christ, through my faith, through prayer, through my community, I feel like I'm getting better at that, and it's people as well in my life as well letting me know like, hey, you should be doing this or that, or some
Yeah.
of the stories like they're like, yeah, no, you really need to pattern up when it comes to X, Y, and Z. So having people that can keep you accountable
Yeah,
for sure,
absolutely.
very important. But yeah,
Absolutely.
it's my therapy session
That's the
over.
therapy
It's part
session. Wow,
part
he
two.
said cut
That's
it.
it. I haven't seen. But yeah, no,
Okay.
like honestly, yeah, no, it's all good. If you have questions, I'm more than happy. I'm an open book.
Taking all of that into account though, like what are you still figuring out right now?
What am I figuring out
Be
right
it
now?
in be it with work or be it personally.
Yeah, no. I think how am I figuring
Is
out?
there anything you're still figuring out?
No, for sure there is. I'm just I'm just trying to think which one am I figuring out right now, which is relevant. So I think to be fair, like when it comes to the business side of things, I'll focus
Yeah.
on that. One thing I'm figuring out, and I think I am figuring out, is how to make sure, as well as, I talked about making sure like as much as I'm passionate about this, is making sure like the business side is taken care of. So how
Mm,
do I make sure like I bring value, not just in terms of the impact I'm doing, but also monetarily, because that's also, as much as I'm not like money driven, I
yeah.
understand what the value of
It's
money
needed.
does
Yeah.
and why it's needed. So how do I do that? How do I extend the impact? And so that's where for me like the sort of growth stage, or the sort of new thing I'm doing now, is I'm building an app right now, and
Mm,
that is what is that figuring out process kind of led to me building this app,
yeah.
which I'm hoping to soft launch later in the year. So that is probably, yeah, the exciting thing I'm kind of figuring out and working out, because yeah, I think for me again it came through my community, Skillstruct University, and going through so many exercises, like we just done the rise one, for example,
Mm-hmm.
through the research and stuff. Like a lot of people, you know are trying to figure things out, right?
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
people, when it comes to like self-discovery and being able to reflect, sometimes often struggle with that. And
Yeah.
I see that with a lot of young people, where they might think, I want to get into tech because people heard that moniker is, oh, it's money, it's X, Y, and all of that
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of that, but sometimes it's like, can you actually do tech, or are you sure you want to get
Yeah.
into technology? Because,
Exactly.
sometimes maybe your strength might be in other things that, you can even make more money in tech. You never know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people are just led to, a few professions thinking that, oh, okay, this is going to make them money, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful at it,
Exactly.
because you have to get there first. And so I go through an exercise of self-discovery, and then through that self-discovery, how do we best get the opportunity that can make you more fruitful? And so for
Mm,
me, with the app Evolve Meal that I'm hoping to launch later in the year, it's basically a combination of evolution and myself. So like Mio in Spanish means myself, and in Japanese also means to blossom.
mm-hmm.
And so for me, how do you create something that can evolve someone to kind of know themselves, but also to blossom and to thrive. And so that's where like the whole idea of gamification came into it as well. And yeah, the app where I'm hoping to build a product that can help people with self-discovery and obviously building that bridge between skill and opportunity.
I love that.
Yeah,
So innovative.
I
I'm
try.
excited. So you said later in the year we should be expecting that.
Hopefully, yeah, God willing. Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay, and I also really like what you said about like everyone now wanting to be in tech, and obviously in this age where technology is advancing so quickly and AI is
Mm,
everywhere. There's so many people who have reservations, but there are also so many people who really want to go into tech because it's all glittery and shining, and so
mm,
it's very attractive. And I
mm.
think that's what even makes your journey so much more inspiring to me because when you initially started, it wasn't anywhere close to this right
No,
now.
definitely not. No. Yeah, no, I did it for the love of it. Like, yeah, no, definitely. And to be honest, like, what's interesting when I started it, like, this is actually, I think it's a positive thing. Like, now, when I was doing it, I was like, in my class, there was like maybe one or two black people doing
Mm,
computer science. So that's why I studied at university.
yeah,
Nowadays, like when obviously I go to a lot of universities and do talks, and I'm just seeing like a lot more black people, a lot more diversity there, which is actually a
it's good.
beautiful
It's a
thing.
good
So
thing. Yeah.
that's great. But like I say, yeah, I did it because I'm a techie at heart, and I love
Yeah,
problem solving and being able to work with logic and stuff like that. So yeah, it's come a long way. So yeah, no, like you say, like it was different times back then. So yeah,
exactly. No, that's so good. Well done.
thank you.
Okay, so my final question in the end, you've kind of touched upon it, but what legacy would you like to leave behind? Be it
Mm,
for yourself,
okay.
be it for your family, you said
Mm,
you're the second oldest,
mm,
be it for future generations, or
mm.
even, for strangers out there. What legacy would you like to leave behind with Skillstruct?
Mm, yeah. I think legacy to kind of leave behind is I think things are possible
Mm-hmm.
as long as you have self-belief or
Yep.
faith.
Yep.
And, it's that, I think it's Matthew 10:17 about faith and a mustard seed
Mm-hmm.
can move mountains. And I feel like that's the legacy I want to ultimately um, put out there. Like if you plant
Mm.
something as small as a mustard seed, if you believe in it, then you can create things the size of mountains. And I feel like if I can inspire at least one person to kind of feel that way, then I feel like I've done my job.
I love that. That's a beautiful place to end it as well. Just, yeah, faith as small as a mustard seed, which also requires patience.
Yes, you definitely need patience. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This isn't for the faint-hearted. Like, I hope people realize, like, not looking at this with rose-tinted glasses. Like, they see
Yeah,
the good things, the highlight reels and stuff like that. But there's a lot of work that goes into it.
yeah,
And again, like, you've got to do the work. You know,
exactly.
you know, faith without works is
But then do you feel like
so.
there's a time eventually though where it will be a little bit less work, where the business can kind of, I don't want to say self-drive, but you have people in place who you can really
100%.
trust with your
Mm,
baby, and
yeah.
also so you can take a step back? And if so, do you feel like you're getting to that stage soon?
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like you can't do everything yourself.
Yeah,
That's just the reality of
yeah,
running a
need to
business.
delegate.
You've
Yeah.
got to delegate exactly like you say. And yeah, no, I'm definitely like getting to that stage. Like even stuff I do with Skillstruct University, I've got someone working with me who's community lead Desire. She's really great. She's someone that, is, someone that actually came through Skillstruct University. I've known her
Mm,
through a church that I used to go to, which I've got a lot of love for, Freedom's Arc. Shout out to Freedom's Arc. And yeah, I've known her for a long time, and I was able to support her and where she's at now in
yeah.
technology, doing amazing work. But also with the whole pay it forward thing, she's someone that is quite proactive, and through that journey, she's become our Skillstruct University lead, and does a lot of our events on that side of things, does a lot of our talks. She done one with women in tech not too long ago, and so being able to delegate that definitely makes my life a lot easier. I feel like I'm on that trajectory, and even the app Evolve Me as well.
Yeah.
I've got a few freelancers working for me as well.
Yeah.
So it's now I'm actually employing people to work for me. So that has its own thing. So I'm able to extend a lot of things, but
Exactly.
obviously that's more extend responsibilities, which naturally, as a business, you want those sort of things because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately that makes your life a lot easier. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming. And, you know, the beginnings may have been humble, but it seems like Skillstruct is really just going from height to greater height by the grace of God. So I really just pray that you continue to have success, that you are able to leave that legacy behind for
mm,
other people out there, and that you also have the strength to continue to really just bring about the impact that you're so motivated and driven to bring. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity as well to just plug any of your socials,
cool.
anything, where can
Okay.
the people find you?
Well, you can see on the top, Skillstruct everywhere. So website skillstruct.com, social medias, all of them at Skillstruct. Pretty simple. If you want to find me, look for Skillstruct. Simple as.
No problem. Well, thank you so much, Michael. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this video, as always, if you're watching from YouTube, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment below what resonated with you the most, what you find most inspiring about Michael's journey. But also, if you have any questions, the link to Skillstruct will also be in the description box. And then if you're watching from any of our other platforms, please like, share with anyone who may be interested. And then subscribe, follow me on all social media. And I hope to see y'all in the next one. Bye, guys.
Peace.